Okay, lesson 2 is on expanding, which is called this distributive property, and then factoring, which is going the opposite. So we're going to simplify these first ones, and if you remember, we do parentheses first. So on this one, we could do 9 plus 3 is 12, and then you do 12 times 6, which is 72. But we're also going to talk about what the distributive property means, or what expanding means, because when we have letters, we won't be able to do it that way. So we're going to do 6 times 3. So I'm going to write that out here with a dot, 6 times 3. And then we're going to plus, and then we're going to do 6 times 9. And then when you get that, you have 18 plus 54, which ends up being the 72. Okay, again, so we know that 9 plus 2 is 11 times 5, we should get 55. But if we're going to do the distributive property, we're going to do 5 times 9, which is 45, and then 5 times 2, which is a positive 10, so we're going to add 10, and we get 55. Okay, now let's do this one. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 times 2, we know the answer should be 8. So I'm not going to write 2 times 8 out anymore. I'm just going to do 2 times 8 is, and I'm going to write 16. And then I'm going to do 2 times the next number, and that number is negative 4. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, which becomes 16 minus 8. And then that answer is 8. So I want you to think about, how is 7 times the quantity of x plus 2 different? And so when you think about it, if you want to pause and think about it, we have an x in there now. That's how it is different. Otherwise, it is the same. We're going to do 7 times x, which is 7x, and then we're going to do 7 times 2, which is a positive 14. So we're doing the same process. We just have letters in there now. So the distributive property allows the number, and I'm going to just put the number sign, the number outside of the parentheses, so like the 6 and the 5 and the 2 and the 7 here, to be distributed to the terms inside. And distributed just means to be multiplied. So you might want to write that off to the side. And then they show you examples there like we did above. So the first problem they do with some pictures, each of the 4 members of the family, so 4 represents the 4 members, ordered a drink, 2 slices of pizza, and an ice cream cone. So the picture kind of represents that story problem there. So it says distribute and write an expression. So if we're going to distribute, we have 4 times the number times the drink, because this in the parentheses would represent 1 person, and then it's times by 4 for all 4 members. So we have 4 times D plus 4 times the pizza. Whoops, sorry, I did that wrong. 4 times, and there's 2 of them. So that would be 4 times 2, which is 8. And then plus 4 times an ice cream cone. So you have to do it by each term in the parentheses. And then now they're showing you with area models, because you know that area is length times width. So if we did this, we'd do 5 times your 3x, which is 15x. And then we do 5 times 2, which is a positive 10. And there's your expression. Here, 7 times x is 7x. And then 7 times negative 9 is a negative 63. And then we read that as 7x minus 63. Okay, so if you want to pause and do them and look for my answers, or you can still do it with me. Okay, I lost the screen for a little bit. Okay, so number 4. Oh my gosh, I keep losing my screen. Number 4, we're going to do 5 times 6x, which is 30x. And then 5 times 9 is a positive 45. You can't forget to multiply by that second number. And don't put a plus or minus sign down. You'll see why after a few. So 4 times 3 is 12x, or 12k. And then 4 times negative 2 is a negative 8. And then you write it like that. 1.5 times 6t, and you may use your calculator, is 9t. 1.5 times a positive 2 is plus 3. And then you can pull out your calculator for the fraction, but timesing by 1/2 is the same as doing 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then by a negative, positive times a negative is a negative. And then 6 divided by 2, because that's what timesing by 1/2 is. And there you go. Next one just has 3 terms. 8 times p. 8 times 7 is a positive 56. And then 8 times 2q, is a plus 16q. 4 times 3.2d is 12.8d. 4 times negative 10 is a negative 40. Okay, and we'll practice lots of those, but the next step is then to have the distributed property mixed in with extra stuff. So on this one, you're going to do the distributed property first. So 6 times 4c is 24c. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And then if you notice, this plus 10 is all by itself. So we are not going to multiply by 6 because this 6 is only with those parentheses. It's only next to that. And then we have to do what we were doing before. We have to put like terms together. So we have 24c, and then we have a negative 12 plus a 10 is a minus 2. Okay, now we have 6 times 3b is 18b. 6 times 7 is a positive 42. And then we have this extra 5b to bring down. And now we're going to put those two together. And we have 23b plus 42. Okay, on this one, this 3x is separate. So we are going to drop it down. So we have 3x. And now we have a positive 2 times 4x, which is 8x. And then a 2 times 7, which is a positive 14. Now we're going to put those together, and we get 11x plus 14. And again, we will practice lots of those, throwing kind of a lot at you in this unit, or in this lesson. And then the next one, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in here, is expressions can be factored to remove the common factor. So it's kind of like we're going backwards. So this is how we undo the distributive property. So we're going to determine the greatest common factor and then remove it by dividing. So for the first one, if we look at the kind of the area model, how do we get 4x? Well, we do 4 times x. How do we get 16? We do 4 times a plus 4. a positive 4. So 4 would be your greatest common factor. On these, the 12 and the 18, your biggest factor between the two of them, and this is kind of thinking back to skills you did a couple years ago in math, is 6. Now you could use 2, but it's not the greatest common factor. And you could use 3, but same thing, it's not the greatest. Okay, and then we would do, you can either do 12 divided by 6, or 6 times what gets you to 12, which would be the 2x. And then 18 divided by 6 is 3. So then when you have them written like this, the greatest common factor between 2 and 6 is going to be 2. And then I always put my parentheses right away. And then I say to myself, 2 times what gets me to 6? And I know it's 3a. And then 2 times what gets me to 2? A positive 1. Or you can do 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, the greatest common factor between 24 and 9 is a 3. And we're going to keep it positive because we can put the minus sign in the inside. So 24 divided by 3 is 8x. And then negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. Okay, greatest common factor between these guys is 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2x. 35 divided by 5 is a positive 7. And that is all for this lesson.